Frankie Delano is a professional watcher employed by Angelo Alighieri, a loved and hated mobster. Frankie's job is to keep Jennifer, Angelo's daughter, safe, but she doesn't know this man is her real father. Those last months, Angelo has been recording video messages for his daughter, which worries Frankie. The old Angelo explains to the bodyguard that Jennifer is the last person he has left, but Frankie also loves him as a father. Following Jennifer and her husband on the road, we find out her husband has sent Raleigh, their 7-year-old son, to a military school far away with the excuse to make him a man, but Jennifer is worried about that. Angelo knows his son-in-law is not intelligent nor a good person. He can see Jennifer's sadness. Frankie offers to solve the husband problem, but Angelo warns him that's not allowed, and Delano has to keep his distance. When arriving home, we see how broken this marriage is. The husband does not care about Jennifer. He says that she should be satisfied because he gives her all, but Jennifer is suffering and unhappy. Her husband does not pay attention to his wife's interests. In a pub, Angelo and Frankie are having a friendly conversation about the importance of family. Angelo says that when he is gone, it will be Frankie's duty to look after Jennifer, but with a chummy smile, Frank says he is not going anywhere, to which Angelo replies that everyone goes somewhere. Outside the pub, two guys are watching Angelo from inside a car. They are Bruno and his buddy. They are waiting for him to finish his lunch to get inside and get rid of him. Then, Frankie sees a patrol car next to his car, so he heads to the officer to see what's the problem. While Frankie is convincing the police officer not to find him, Bruno takes advantage of the distraction, enters the place, and takes the old man's life. Frankie gets an injury too, but he can't see Bruno was responsible for it. In a reading club, Jennifer is now with a group of friends and expresses her misery. She is really afraid of Raleigh and claims that she is having a heart attack. One of her friends tries to calm her down by giving her 2 tablets, but Jennifer swallows a bunch of them instead. Then, Jennifer and her friends are sitting at a table when Ashley receives a call. She answers and then claims that she has to go due to her son being sick. The presenter thanks Jennifer because she was who organized the event, and introduces Marcello Della Rosa, a romantic writer. The crowd is amazed by this handsome, radiant man with dark hair and bright blue eyes. But the most admiring lady in the room is Jennifer, who gazes at him, and while he is retelling a section of the book, she imagines a romantic scene with him. Up to this point, the medicine starts to take effect. She sees blurry and then falls off the chair. Back at her house, she crashes the car in the garage and walks dizzily. When she gets home, listens to someone laughing, which worries her, so she takes a gun. But what she finds is her husband cheating on her with Ashley, her friend on the pool. Confused by the pill, she fires some shots, but nobody is hurt, so kicks her husband out of the house. That night, she hears someone knocking on her door, and although she thinks it's her husband begging for forgiveness, she finds Frankie Delano bleeding. At first, she is reluctant to let him in, but then she remembers him and accedes. As the bodyguard is terribly injured, a worried Jennifer suggests calling an ambulance or the cops, but Frankie only needs some whiskey, a needle, and thread to stitch the wound. Then, he gives her a DVD in which Angelo tells his story. It turns out that Alighieri had many enemies. In the past years, there was a war in New York, and 2 guys, Sammy Carboni and Lucio Malatesta, wanted to put Angelo to eternal sleep, but they both also wanted to eliminate each other. Therefore, Malatesta sent a hitman to take over Carboni, and when he did the job, was eliminated by Bruno Sr. to hide evidence. However, Sammy didn't die instantly. In the hospital, Lucio visited him, and as the hitman had also worked with Angelo, Malatesta blamed him. On his deathbed, Sammy Carboni swore that if Angelo had a child, it must be eliminated. While he knew this, Angelo was in Sicily with his pregnant wife. Unfortunately, she went to eternal sleep when giving birth to a daughter, who Angelo brought back to America with him. Nevertheless, things were tense with Angelo's enemies, so he gave his daughter away to a poor family and bought them a big property, but with one condition. The child must not know who her father was because she would be in danger. Although she refuses to accept the reality, Jennifer pictures the idea as she is hearing Angelo's story. Finally, she knows that Angelo is her father, and when she listens to that, she faints. The next day, Frankie prepares some breakfast and brings it to bed, but she is still confused and reluctant to accept Angelo as her father. Then she angrily claims she has real parents and goes straight to the mall. There, she wants to forget her problems at least for a while by buying a bunch of shoes, but she gets involved in a shooting inside the store. Fortunately, Frankie is there. He jumps toward Jennifer to cover her body from the bullets and saves her. Jennifer realizes the danger she is in, so they go to the car and leave the mall. In the car, the lady shows how upset she is with the situation. Frankie apologizes that he may have led the shooter to her. Jennifer, angry, says that her father is a successful man and could ruin him anytime he wants. Hitting Frankie, she demands to be taken to her parents' house. Once there, Jennifer calls for her mother, who shows up and tells her about a shooting in the mall. The girl says she knows about that and asks for her dad, to which her mother replies that he is in racquetball lessons. Jennifer, surprised, asks when has he started playing racquetball, but her mother says that in fact, her dad is having an affair with the instructor, who is a he. At that time, her father appears and greets Jennifer with a wide smile, but she is still confused and asks about switching affiliations. Her dad laughs and claims that doesn't change anything between them. but Jennifer feels uncomfortable and leaves. Back in the car, Jennifer sulkily tells Frankie that her fake parents have told the true story. At that moment, Whitney, the false father, comes and tells Jenny that he loves her and would have taken her even without the money. The old man then claims he gave her nothing but his whole heart. They hug and say goodbye. Back home, Jennifer is on the phone talking to Raleigh while Frankie is in the kitchen cooking. The guy says Raleigh must miss his mother, but Jennifer is convinced he is having a good time without her. Then, they talk about how much Frankie enjoys cooking and they fool around for a moment. While having dinner, Jennifer asks him about his name and mocks him. The lady is impressed by the wonderful meal Frankie has prepared, and while drinking some wine asks what's going to happen next. Frankie explains he is going to stay in the guest's house to take care of the woman, because he does not trust anybody. The lady goes to bed and Frankie sappily smiles, showing his affection, but she doesn't see him. Later that night, someone breaks into the house and heads to Jennifer's bedroom. When this person is about to get on the lady, Frankie covers him with a blanket and apprehends the man. He is Jennifer's husband who is there to apologize for what he did the day before. Jennifer asks if yesterday was the only time he cheated on her and he affirms that. But Delano is a watcher and reminds him 2 more times he did that, with exact dates and places. Jennifer, disappointed, kicks him out again, so her husband leaves, not without first threatening to see her in court. Then a hopeless Jennifer affirms that there will be no man for her in the future, but Frankie encourages her, saying that he believes in 2 things, the kindness of the saints, and that there's someone for everybody. She asks him if he has someone. Frankie responds that sort of, but doesn't know. He refers to her. In the church, the priest is giving a celebration in Angelo's name. There, Frankie shows Jenny who Bruno and Malatesta are, and explains that everyone thinks that she is Angelo's lover. Back at home, Frankie is watching a picture of Jennifer in which he appears looking at her. Then, he remembers Angelo's words about keeping the distance. He must maintain his role as bodyguard. Suddenly, a guy is in the garden climbing to get inside the house, but Frankie intercepts and knocks him out. At that moment, the lady appears, but in order not to worry her, Frankie claims he is taking out the garbage. Jennifer knocks on the door, so Frankie rapidly hides the corpse under the bed and lets her in. The lady tells him how afraid she is of her past fears, and at that moment, a flatulence escapes from the lifeless guy, but Frankie simply blames the squirrels. Jennifer spends the night there with Frankie, lying in separate beds. Frankie tells her a Sicilian story about hearing opera music from somewhere near the coast. He says that her father always tells her mother that the greatest love stories were in the opera. Early the next morning, Frankie throws the corpse into the sea. That night, Frankie gets Jennifer to the opera and hires a guy to bring a bouquet of red roses. Frankie explains to her what the actors say in the performance, and he highlights the phrase, La vendetta è tutto, means revenge is everything. At that moment, Marcello appears and gives Jennifer a white rose. She is amazed and points out that white roses are pure, not like the red ones that everyone gets. This obviously disappoints Frankie, who cancels the bunch of red roses. In a restaurant, they talk about Jennifer's parents. The bodyguard says Angelo was a handsome man and describes how beautiful his wife was. Jennifer asks Frankie if he has ever married and if he is in love with someone, to which he replies he is just waiting. Then, they discuss Marcello's book. The bodyguard affirms that's not appealing to him because things is too smooth. He points out that women can go crazy by men like him, and tells a story about Sammy Carboni's son. He says he once was watching that 13-year-old kid and saw how girls looked amazed at him. However, as Marcello is approaching the table, Jennifer is not paying much attention to Frankie's words. She asks if she looks good. With some displeasure, Frankie lets her hair down and puts a candle in the middle of the table. Marcello comes there and asks if they are together. A nervous Jennifer answers they don't. So Marcello says sweet cloying words that disgust Frankie but charm the lady. Jennifer tells him that she has read all his books. So the writer asks if he can call her, softly kisses her hand, and leaves. Jennifer is full of joy, but Frankie doesn't. Now in Jennifer's house, she and Frankie are sharing some drinks, while she asks about her father. Frankie tells the lady that Angelo always watched her and worried for her safety. He also mentions he watched her too. Then, Jennifer asks about people who had been mean to her in the past, a boyfriend who cheated on her and a girl who mistreated Jenny. Frankie states he remembers none of those people, but in fact, he had seen to it that she would not be disturbed anymore. Then, the girl says they are becoming good friends, but the bodyguard doesn't like that, because he is in love with Jennifer. When going to sleep, the lady notices that her bedroom door is closed and she never closes it. Frankie goes upstairs and confronts the guy, who falls down the balcony and passes away. The guy is a hitman who works for Malatesta and has been sent to get rid of Jenny. Then, the phone rings, and although the girl is angry and doesn't want to answer, Frankie recommends doing it. The call is from her child, who tells her mother he loves her, and asks to be called on the next day again. The lady is furious. She doesn't want to leave her son as an orphan. Then, while they throw the lifeless body into the sea, Jennifer tells Frankie she wants to get rid of Malatesta. Frankie laughs surprised, but she says that Alicaris don't bow down, a phrase said by Angelo. So Frankie agrees but warns that is not as easy as she thinks. At home, they think of a plan. Jennifer's idea is to walk into Valhalla Inn, a club, and flirt with Malatesta. When he gets charmed, she would knock him. Frankie says she must match her walking to her attitude and starts a little game of seduction. He teaches her how she has to walk and he gets soon amazed by her beautiful body. At night, they drive to the club and Frankie expresses his concern. He is not sure about letting her go alone, but the girl claims that if her life's going to be that way, she must learn how to do things on her own. Frankie finally agrees and she thanks him, kissing his cheek. Inside the club, every man's eyes are on Jennifer, who looks gorgeous wearing a wonderful black dress. Malatesta, astonished by her beauty, orders Bruno to get her. Once with Malatesta, Jennifer, holding a cigarette, flirts with him, showing her nonchalance about Angelo's death and mentioning that Lucio may be different. Impacted by Jennifer's beauty, Malatesta starts to get symptoms of a heart attack. The girl blows cigarette smoke on him, so an ambulance arrives, but the old man demands that Jennifer has to go with him. Frankie is seeing everything from the car, so he follows the vehicle. Inside the ambulance, Malatesta orders Bruno to get a priest. He wants to marry Jennifer by force. Once in the church, Jennifer desperately improvises kind of a prayer, but she does not know how to do it. When Malatesta and his gang appear with the priest, she tries to light a cigarette to increase the old man's pain, but again, she can't do it. However, the marriage can't be stopped. The priest, in a dubious act, marries them and the ceremony finishes with Bruno forcing Jennifer to kiss Lucio. At Lucio's home, Jennifer is obliged to change clothes and give pleasure to the old man. The disgusting old Malatesta is waiting for her lying in bed, but when he watches her, he instantly dies due to his heart can't stand such a wonderful lady, and stops, leaving him in eternal sleep. Jennifer sneaks out of the house, but she is seen by Malatesta's boys who chase her. Without any choice, she jumps off the balcony, and when she is about to get shot, Frankie arrives with the car and picks her up. The girl is pleased for having accomplished the goal. She tells Frankie that she got rid of Lucio Malatesta by marrying him. At Jenny's home, they make a toast, and while having some drinks, the phone rings. The lady says that must be Raleigh, but to her surprise, the person calling is Marcello Della Rosa, who invites her on a date the next day. Frankie is devastated. He has made everything for her, but she only sees him as a friend. Marcello and Jennifer have a wonderful time together. The girl is charmed by the writer's cuteness and seductive gaze. At that same time, Bruno goes to Jennifer's house to eliminate her bodyguard. He steps inside the guest house holding a gun and finds Frankie sitting on an armchair reading a book. Bruno asks for Frankie's last words, but he takes Bruno by surprise and puts an end to his life. The book was hiding a gun. After that, Jennifer comes back home and Frankie asks her if she is in love, but she does not answer. Then, she says that Marcello has asked her to go to Sicily with him. Frankie shows his displeasure, which upsets Jennifer. She asks if she means something to him, but he doesn't say a word. On the next day, Marcello picks Jennifer up in a limousine and leaves. Later that day, Frankie is in a bar reading Marcello's book and he has sort of an epiphany that something is wrong with that guy, so he asks for the check and leaves. Now in Sicily, Marcello brings Jenny to the opera house. She sees a sculpture and realizes that in that place her mother passed away. At that moment, Jennifer is frank with Marcello and tells him she is an Alighieri, Angelo's daughter. With a soft but disruptive look in his eyes, he says he knows that and he claims he is Gianni Carboni, Sammy's son. The guy accuses Angelo of having taken his father's life, and Jennifer is confused and paralyzed. At that moment, the girl understands that Malatesta has nothing to do with her father's incident. It has been Bruno under Marcello's orders. When Marcello is about to finish with Jennifer, Frankie appears and although gets some injuries, with Jenny's help, gets rid of Sammy's son. Frankie knows that is the perfect moment to declare his love to Jennifer. He confesses that he has been in love with her since she was a young lady and he is still loving her. Jennifer with wide open eyes tells him he should have told her long before, because she loves him too, and then, they warmly kiss. Frankie and Jennifer decide to stay in Italy. He now works as a cook and they form a happy family with Raleigh and a new baby. Jennifer rediscovers her Italian roots and Frankie enjoys sharing that with her. Frankie addresses Angelo saying wherever he is please excuse him, but he couldn't keep his distance.